I'm Jordan.
And I'm Rosanna.
And on this podcast, we explore how to take life off autopilot
and relentlessly pursue a life worth living together. Hello, and welcome to Season 8, Episode 4 of the Relentless Pursuit podcast, Manifesting, an interview with Angelina Lombardo. Angelina is a spiritual advisor who is centered in trauma-informed psycho-spiritual health, intersectional social justice, and spiritual business leadership, leading with a decolonized spirit and mind. She's a longtime student of psychedelics, psychology, and the arts of healing from a personal and professional experience. A Sherpa to creatives, luminaries, and change agents, she specializes in identifying resistance, removing blocks, and leading communication so that all those who cross her path are expressly seen, heard, and felt, and aware of their true value.
During this conversation, you can listen for a definition of manifesting, both what it is and what it's not, manipulating energy, visualization, identifying values and priorities, the power of conversation, psychedelics and their role towards manifesting, as well as misconceptions and the war on drugs, self-affirmation versus others' desires for you, the limits of manifesting, the role of action plans, and consumerism and the easy way versus the work that actually is involved with manifesting. We learned a lot during this conversation, and we're excited to present to you Angelina Lombardo. Angelina Lombardo, welcome to the Relentless Pursuit podcast. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me, you guys.
So before we really dive in with manifesting, could you just start us out with a little bit about your work, your professional background, and your place in the world right now?
Yeah, it's a loaded question for a person like me. Not because, I have many answers, but I'll concentrate on what I do specifically and what communities I work with, I guess. So I work with women specifically and particularly, and we work with trauma. So I'm a trauma-informed, anti-colonial practiced, anti-patriarchal practicing guide and mentor. And I help women with blocks to their wealth. And that can look literally like anything within the sphere of body, mind, and like soul. So that's what I'm doing currently. And I am doing that from Portugal, Lisbon, Portugal.
It's on our list of places we'd like to visit one day.
Good.
So
well,
I'm very jealous of your international locale.
Well, listen, if you want, you're invited. I invite you. I'll host you, take you out to dinner.
There you go. Now we've got this to go.
Absolutely. Now you have you had reasons before, but now you've got somebody on the other side.
Beautiful.
All right. So every season we make a list of topics that we're interested in discussing. And one thing that's been on our list for a couple seasons now has been this idea of manifesting. Something I came across and something you hear about a lot in the media, in pop culture. And at the start of 2022, I always do a word of the year. And then I make a list of kind of like goals and areas I want to focus on. And I wrote down that I wanted to explore a little bit more in 2022, both meditation and manifesting. And for the reason of I guess I'm curious as to do we really have the power to manipulate energy and to speak the things that we want into existence? Is this really a thing, or is it bullshit? And I haven't really gotten any closer this year to really studying it or talking to anyone. But then I thought, you know what, we've got about 3 months left in the year. Now's a great time to kind of figure it out, and to see if even some of the things that I'm already doing, am I already manifesting? Is it what they say it is, or is it something completely different?
Right. Yeah. I love that. I love that you're inquiring and that you're exploring right now. And it's on a first person basis, because I think what you had mentioned pop culture and media. And I think that begs the question, is it bullshit? Because it's coming from, I think, the lens of a consumer based product that they're selling. Manifestation, you can speak it out of the, that's probably the problem. It's actually a huge problem coming from the perspective of where it had affected me and my manifestation and goals, etc. And so I would say I commend you on exploring. It's a huge place to explore and create your life. Um, and I think for this, I guess, conversation, I would be coming from the perspective of let's keep it out of culture and like media. It's a huge problem. So I want to answer one question. Are you already manifesting? Yes, you are. Like we're continually just it's like the present moment. So you mentioned, and you had mentioned meditation. And so what is meditation for you? That's my question for you, really. What is meditation?
That's a great question. To me, in my mind, it's like kind of taking a moment and stepping back. It's kind of using some like solitude and quiet to kind of like center myself and kind of remind myself of what's important to me, what my values are, and then kind of like being in alignment with those things, like kind of shutting out the rest of the noise that's around me and kind of focusing in on that.
Okay.
And more specifically, I've seen you like you're a writer. Like I see you when you're really concentrating on something, like you're handwriting like page after page of notes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I've used, which I've talked about before in our podcast, the 5-minute journal, which is just like a daily practice I use where it asks me to write down 3 things I'm grateful for, 3 things that would make for a great day, and then 1 affirmation about myself. And so kind of like that practice of like being in a realm of like, what am I really grateful for? What would really make this day powerful to me? And what is a truth I know about myself seems to kind of impact the way I think about my day and the way I go about my day. And then at the end of the day, there's a little thing at the bottom that says, name 3 great things that happened today, and name, how does it? The last one says, how could I have made today even better? And so I'm constantly focusing on what I say I want and what I'm working towards. And then it's like this reflection piece that kind of keeps me in the right mindset, I would say.
Right. Okay. So so thank you. I love all of those things that you have shared. And I'm curious if those practices, like what have they brought into your life? So I would say, in other words, you've created a pattern, or we could call it a habit, and you're doing it. You're doing the action. You know, what is the empirical evidence, or what has it brought to your life? What has it created? Or in this case, what's it manifesting for you? That's what I'm curious about. Is it doing something? Are you?
I would say, yeah. And so that's why I'm like, okay, so I don't think manifesting is bullshit, because like when I sit down and I do this practice, like the things that I write do come to fruition, but the things I'm writing aren't a car, a trip, like they're not like luxury items.
Right.
Sometimes it's focusing on like the moment I had with my kids, or something that I've gotten to that like I'm focused on, or working towards something. It's never like an instant gratification kind of item, or a moment where like I want this person to call me and tell me, it's nothing like that. It's stuff that like I have to really sit down and kind of dig deep for, and they're usually often pretty like simple and kind of normal things, but that if I didn't focus on them, I would just brush right past them.
So it sounds to me like you're just increasing your awareness. And in increasing your awareness, because you have uncovered what, and I'll call them values right now, like the things that you live by every day that are important for you, those values, it sounds like you've actually created for yourself a set of questions, even if they came from somewhere else, and a practice and habit that brings your values aligned, and I'm going to say coherent to you, so that it actually informs your actions each day. And you said that it's simple, but really it packs a punch. It's powerful. And so that is manifesting, visual, feeling into your body, your mind, your faith, soul-based, whatever that is, whatever is bigger than you sort of belief, right? To make this like a non-denominationally type conversation and include it, because it's a giant piece. That's manifesting. And I'm curious to know why, what you had said something about like a big car or like making. So now that you know it's not bullshit, my question to you is, why not ask for maybe material things or bigger? I'm just curious. I'm not saying that that's where the bullshit starts, but I, which is what I'm thinking you're saying, but
Right.
I'm inferring, and that's how my mind works. So could you tell me a little bit about that really quickly?
Sure. I mean, so I've, the simple things I've kind of put out there, but I've also started a business in the last few years, which has continued to grow and is kind of starting to grow, I would say, like exponentially. And so there's stuff tied to that. So then I like seeing that happen. But like, this is kind of funny. I'll show you if you can see the backdrop on my phone.
Sweet.
Love it.
Screensaver is a picture of a girl in front of the Eiffel Tower in Paris.
Yes.
Okay.
Is that Emily in Paris or something?
And it's not Emily. It's some screensavers I put on there because I said I turned 40 next month. And I said, like, I would love for my 40th birthday, not that it has to be on my birthday, but in the year of 40 to have a trip, go on a trip to Paris. And so like, this is my passive aggressive way of, I'm putting it out there into the universe. It's the backdrop on my phone. And the thing I realize about that is that I'm about to be 40. I'm a grown ass woman. Like, we have money. Like, if I want to go to Paris, I can go to Paris. So the one thing standing in my way is like, what? It's me saying that I'm going to go and me booking the tickets, finding someone to watch the kids.
So also we don't want to bring our 4 kids and dog with
like
us.
logistics and things there, but like, am I getting in the driver's seat of my own life and making those things happen to clear the path to take what I want?
Exactly.
And so what I found is if there is something that I want and I'm not getting it, it's usually because I'm in the way. Whether it's like my thinking or my behaviors or my beliefs about what I deserve or don't deserve.
Thank you. I mean, why? Okay. For just because that takes a lot of doing the work. Visualizing is a huge piece to manifesting. Why? Because the brain's mirror neuron, like you seeing a picture of a woman in front of the Eiffel Tower, then you realizing, hey, before that, you realized you wanted to go to Paris. Then you put a date on it. Then you sort of imbued. I'm not going to call it magic because again, I told you I want to stay like rooted and grounded in this concept of manifestation outside of the media. It's not fucking magic. It's actual work. You did lots of things to bring about that to get you to the point where now you're like, okay, I'm standing in my own way. So what are you going to do next? I'm asking you really now, are you going to book the ticket? Because this is your 40 year, right? Your 40th. You wanted to do those things. And you had mentioned feeling like, okay, well, do I deserve it? Do I like push the button? Do I make the tickets? Do I find someone to stay with the 4 kids? I can do this. What? Then there's an uncomfortable piece about being a master receiver. And I think a lot of that's kind of I think that at least in my realm, it's not talked about. Every time I say, well, before we start any type of manifestation, or we have to become a master receiver. We have to actually know how to say yes. You got to this place. Okay, are you going to say yes? Are you going to surrender? You've noticed that it has something to do with worth, right? And as a woman, I'm not even surprised at all, especially as a mother. As parents, I'm not surprised. What's the next step?
I mean, the next step is
the child care is really the linchpin, right?
Sure.
Well, sure. But I mean, when there have been other times when you want to make something happen, you make it happen. And so whether that's, like asking someone, which, then there's guilt or there's, there's all of those things that like keep you from doing those things. But like, that's the one thing that I need to do. So then I have to, go do it.
Yeah. You have to face yourself after you come out with some very cognitive and coherent material to work with, right? Let's make it real. It's not like this magic of manifestation. It's literally this work that you have to do. You've made it concrete. Now it's cognitive. You literally are aware of it and you know exactly what to do. The next step, like I said, is that master receiver and looking into what is worth to me, defining what wealth, what you want to manifest and why you want to manifest. is sort of the start of a conversation. I'm going to tell you that those conversations are continually happening in your body, in your mind, and in your like faith. It's like that faith-based, that value-based reality that you've already created, which is the manifestation that you're already doing, right? So you're just you're increasing your awareness to what already is. I think a lot of people who get into I think the people that say it's bullshit have a lot, there's a big voice there's a lot of reasons why they think it's bullshit. And I think they're very valuable and important. And I don't know if we want to talk about those now because
I think we're kind of at some, we're defining what manifestation is, but also what it's not too. And like, I know you wrote about the law of attraction, which I think is maybe the kind of the magic piece that it may be the bullshit piece. But like what isn't it that we often like confuse it for, maybe like the pop culture easy way of understanding manifestation versus what we're talking about?
Yeah. Okay. So first off, it's not magic. It's not faith-based. Religion plays a huge part, I think, in this picture, because there is a huge body of human beings who use a lot of this to bypass. So there's a spiritual bypassing happening, which means that like it sort of goes along with, I think I need to say this disclaimer first. Number one, there are a multitude, there are infinitesimal perspectives. This is one perspective. And I could speak about many, but because we don't have time and we're here, I'm speaking about one. And spiritual bypassing is a huge problem when it comes to a lot of things: violence, trauma, racism, things that are bypassed by thinking that there's some sort of magic in being religious or faith-based spirituality. You can do a ceremony and then all of a sudden shit will happen, or you'll clear up. These are just some examples. You'll clear up past traumas without actually doing work like what you have already done. That's sort of like following what it is, being curious and exploring. So it's not magic. It's not just thinking with your mind either. That's where the bypassing comes in, because people will think about manifesting and magic and think that it comes, like the energy comes through the mind. If you really think hard, like the shit's gonna like emanate out into the world in particles that are gonna uplift the world and the planet. And so energy is another thing that we can talk about, but it's not coming from your mind and that part of the plan, I guess. And it's also not to be consumed. Like it's not, manifest shit. How can we actually talk about what it's not without saying what media's made it?
Mm-hmm.
What is it? I mean, give me an example of what media has said to you about what manifestation is.
Right. If you just think about it and concentrate on it enough, then you're kind of bending the universe towards your will and your understanding of it.
Yeah.
I've seen picture like a photo of Paris on social media, and then there's like 80 comments of people saying,
I claim
that, and it seems like
there's more steps.
It seems, like it's too, like you can't just write a comment on a social media post and then things happen, things land on your lap. And that's what I'm really interested in, is like, because I think there is a degree of like thinking about something, and really like changing, I guess maybe like changing the way you think. You're having more control over how you conceive of yourself and your reality. But I like some of the things you wrote, you've mentioned like almost going beyond thoughts, like the idea of knowing something to your core or in your soul, the way that you can't only do it in your mind.
Yeah, it was, well, so one of the reasons, I like to pause and think, because materializing things, you can shorten the time between making a trip to Paris. You can control that. It's not far from shortening the time. How do I say this? I'm contemplating whether I want to talk about science, like science fiction, or scientific, or like science-based quantum physics versus like staying right here in this lane. So I apologize for that. It's deeper because, so I had mentioned like the faith-based, like the thing that you know. It's like the thing we know that we know, and then we know that there are things that we don't know, right? And then there's like this inner authority. So this is where I think I want to take it. When you are exploring and you realize that you can't make a phone appear where there is none with your mind bending it, right? It is, and again, I'm going to pause. The way my brain, I'm very neurodivergent, and I've got like 5 things that are saying, talk about me, talk about me.
We feel the same way with some of the different branches that the conversation could go.
Yeah, I think I like pauses quite a lot. I think it makes room for being like human, and the human I am, I sometimes have to try to, focus on what I'm saying. Okay, so what I'm saying is that you can't make it appear right in front of you. Like you can't bend with your mind that way. And you were talking about knowing, the knowing that you have, right? Well, the knowing that you have starts with your like society and what you've been conditioned to think, believe, see, right? And it also is just reinforced constantly on a daily basis, all the time. Like reality's coming at you, reality's coming at you. It's really, it takes something to push back on reality and sort of challenge, not outwardly, challenge inwardly. And the only way to to do that challenging inwardly is by getting really quiet and by noticing what is reality for you. It's kind of deep, and it's definitely existential. And it takes what it takes. I won't say how long, or it's taken me quite a long time to finally know that for me, when I believe or know something, it goes through this filter, but the filter is mine, and it's the inner authority filter. Like because I have been a victim of trauma and abuse, authority, the word authority really stands important for me. It's because outside authority has stated, in my religion, it was very clear what the boundaries were and what the rules were, and it was very authoritative. And then my parents, the same, and then society, the same, and then what I got at school, right? All of those layers come from the outside in, but when you push back and then you can go in, you do find, and I venture to say you're already doing this, and I'm sure you are as well, becoming clear that there's a voice there already of wisdom. You already actually have all of that. You can manifest a car faster if you are clear coming from that place. You understand the steps. Visualizing is very important. You know how your brain works. So that's why that visualizing is important. You know what your body is saying. Okay, I'm not safe. I don't want this. I can't. It's about self-worth. I don't know what that means. It just calls you deeper and deeper into doing the layers of work. And if you can answer the call that your inner authority is having for you, you can get in deeper to those things and clearing up that and bringing more coherence to your actual field of reality, the quantum field of reality and your energy reality. It does shorten the time. So that was a very long answer to just say that there is so much powerful manifestation that could take place if you will and would go and do your work for you, that work. Your nervous system, knowing how your brain's functioning in that manifestation, understanding your emotions and how they play a part, how they stop you, how they don't, understanding what messages they actually have, and then knowing what values they all sit on. Like, I would say values are the most important piece. And when it comes to manifesting, I actually don't start with what do I desire, like outside and my material things. I actually start with like core desired feelings. Like, what are my feelings? And how do they correlate with those values? And then I get really clear. I mean, I've done what you've done, mapped out things and put words, because words are really potent and you feel them somatically in your body when they're being said. And if you can connect them in some areas, then you know what's important for you. And then when you come upon a problem in the day, you understand the bottom line, the inner authority part that's already clear, understands and knows, oh, well, I don't do that because it doesn't feel good. I don't have integrity if I continue to blah, blah, blah away from my values. It's very clear. That's more about becoming the person you want to be in the future, but right now.
So what that makes me think about is I feel like when I think about myself and some of the things that I envision for who I'd like to be, I sense that there's, I'm going to call it like a ceiling, and like this mental ceiling. Like I believe I am capable of this skill or this quality, like up to the certain point, and then I feel like that there's kind of a mental barrier coming from who knows where, just experiences and the way I've shaped myself, so that it's harder to change the way that I actually conceive of myself. And I think you used the word in one of your articles, like scripts, like kind of a way how we understand ourselves, understand the world. I know Tony Robbins and others have talked about, like, if you make like $100,000 a year, like if you change the way you think about yourself and you realize you're a $1 million a year kind of person, then that can become your reality. But it starts with like that thought life that you have. And so just in my own, I've been doing like some similar things, like goal setting and meditation. But how do you change the way that you actually understand yourself? I don't know if that question's clear.
Oh, it makes a lot of sense, actually. So, I mean, there's a lot of things I can say, but those scripts come from a place. Where do you venture to say this ceiling? I mean, let's start with this. I believe you have a hunch. You have a hunch why you keep hitting this ceiling. The fact that you're aware that there's something that's sort of like sitting on top of you. You're doing the actions, but then you're just like, well, I know this, but like, I want to be exponential, and so I want to know what your hunch is. What is your hunch about what that could be?
I think so. This is the difference between maybe like surface level knowledge and then something that's a little bit more core. Because on the surface, I can think like, oh, I'm capable of, and fill in the blank with certain goals that I have. And on the show, we've talked about real estate, we've talked about business, we've talked about I train with jujitsu, and I imagine that I'm some tough guy, and but at the same time, there's almost like a voice inside that says, like, I'm not that person. I'm not as tough as I logically conceive myself capable of being. I'm not as savvy with business or finances as I would imagine myself being able to like learn how to be. So it's almost like a degree of self-sabotage. And I see this with like with our kids too, where they say like, oh, I'm just not a blank person.
Yeah.
A lot of people like, I'm just not a math person. And right. And I feel like, even though I know that's not the thing to say, there's still a piece of me that it really does believe that limitation exists.
Well, first off, you are recognizing that it's a limitation. I would agree. Number one. Number two, it's better to say it than it is to try and ignore it. Right? We all have that. That is, so instead of ignoring it and actually maybe sitting in the tension of the what's the word? Just sitting in the tension of like resistance, I guess. I'll call it for a lack of better words, resistance, sitting in the resistance and the tension that that brings, right? How about having a conversation with it? It may sound like at first a little strange, but I'm going to venture, and it can be a myriad of things, voices, concepts, if you will. Voices meaning people in your head. So we have the self-critic, and I would think that this is a place where the self-critic is there. This self-critic's developed by, remember, society, your parents. It's also developed by a thing like your how do I put this? A part of your ego that is there to actually keep you safe from doing things that are outside of your comfort zone. Sometimes that, and then that's an actual survival part of our brain, and we need that, right?
Mm-hmm.
But that's we don't need it when you're trying to earn $200,000 as opposed to $100,000, or find out what your self-worth is, right? But you do need to contend with it. And so I've actually created, like I tell clients, you know, let's create conversations. Let's create answers for those places or those things, those thoughts. The other thing is it's our minds are meaning making machines. So and that's true. Now, that doesn't mean that there are not other things involved. It doesn't mean that you're not really a victim. You're just thinking you're a victim of something, and just stop that. Create an answer for the victim. I mean, it's very complex, but I did want to say that because when I was younger, and being the person that was abused in many aspects of my life. When it came time to hearing that my mind was a meaning making machine, I was like, well, then what's real and what's not? And what do I have to work on and what do I don't? So I'm sort of making the statement that the abuse that one person feels is real, and you're not making that up in your mind. And it's not the meaning, like you feeling hurt and victimized is a state of being, and it's existing in your body, and it affects your thoughts. Whereas you here are trying to figure out why you keep hitting this resistance and ceiling. And I would just, I guess, invite you to actually listen to what's being said if you butt up against and ask for a conversation. Lots of things happen within a realm of like imagination in your mind, not just the meaning making part. There's actual meaning behind the mind, if you will. So I hope that how was that? Was that helpful at all?
Yeah, I mean, because I guess my original conception was to like, how do I get rid of this? How do I circumvent this? So
Yeah.
that was an unexpected response from you. Like I kind of interrogate that a little bit,
Yeah.
and live in that. Would you say like reside in that tension a little bit more? That's not what I expected. So I think that's valuable, and hopefully for listeners too who feel the same way, that that's something that they can respond likewise with.
Yeah, I mean, self-inquiry goes deep. You can always there. It's sort of like a bottomless pit, I think. And one of the worst things that we actually do to ourselves is deny, push down, try to erase. If I want to be highly successful, I need to have it look like this. These people make, you've got all the books and all the media telling you exactly what to do, when, by the way, this ceiling you're experiencing and the voice, I can't know what that voice is for you. It could be your father. It could have been one thing could have been said to you, is what I'm saying. And it's literally
Mm-hmm.
creating a self-sabotage for yourself. But if you can't slow down to accept where you're at right now, you will never go to where you want to be. And it is not dictated by others outside of yourself. It's just not. You actually have to go the opposite and back through yourself, period. It doesn't exist anywhere. You cannot create habits for yourself by following someone else's truth. You can get some clarity, you'll get coherent in some ways, but if you're not having the experience yourself, then it's just regurgitated shit from other people. And to me, that sounds like consumerism in the media. And of course, that was what it's produced. Like, that's why it's produced and mass produced. and let's not even talk about politics, etc. Right? It's all reverberating. So yeah, being with what's true for you is probably the single most important aspect to manifesting, to owning your own life, to getting clear, and then actually empowering your own life, creating a self agency for yourself, like an actual individual first, and then collective, because then you can be in community if you know who's the who in the community. I hope this is making sense.
No, I mean, it definitely does. I mean, because I think it really just goes back to like being in tune with what you want your reality to become.
It
And
does.
so it's not always like a status thing or a dollar amount. It's all of these other pieces that fit together.
Yeah.
And so whether you own your own business or you work for somebody else, but the pieces are in alignment with what you say you want or who you say you are, and you don't feel that ceiling where you're being pushed into like a realm where you don't want to be, or you're feeling constricted, or you don't feel like you're being the truest expression of yourself.
Yes.
Then you're living the life that you say that you want, and then there shouldn't be any of that tension.
Well, I liked what you were saying earlier too about like being receptive, right? Because sometimes we tell ourselves like I don't deserve that. I'm not the kind of person who gets those kinds of things. And so like being receptive to like when an opportunity does present itself, or we have the chance to make something happen, to actually let it happen, or to make it happen and be receptive to that, I think is a unique principle as well. Because there's a lot of comfort in what we're familiar with, whether or not it's the right thing for us.
Yeah, it actually opens up lots of questions when you get to the point where I sort of want to I want to insert a story, like a hypothetical, but also because it's partly true for me, hypothetical story, just to show you something about self-worth and becoming the person, the master receiver, right? So if you could imagine that there was a billionaire, I don't need to put a name, but you've got a billionaire. All of a sudden you meet this billionaire in your life, right? And you have a few conversations with this billionaire, and then this billionaire turns to you and lets you know, wow, you are really very smart. You are so intelligent. This billionaire really just lays it on where they really believe in you, and they think that you are just magnificent, really just one of a kind, right? First off, it's going to start to feel uncomfortable a bit. Billionaire equals worth lots of things. There are biases about what you think money makes a person, right? Okay, so now you've got this billionaire saying in your face that you are just freaking brilliant, smart, worth it, magnificent. Wow, they're literally in awe. You're uncomfortable, you don't know what to do. That's one part. Imagine that billionaire saying, I want to invest in you. What are you doing? I want to give you anything you need, whatever you want. That again is another place where there are so many, what it does is it actually creates a lot of opportunity for you to become aware of the, I guess, questions and the discomfort that it brings up. And it's almost like if a person like that wants to invest in you, what does that mean? What are you making it mean versus what does it mean versus all of the other things that you can become aware of. And in that, you'll find more of your inner authority, like more of yourself, which creates more, like I said before, coherency through the lens of what's true for you. And it's just an exploration of all the questions, and it's not only happening in your mind. So I don't want to, I actually want to make sure I highlight that it's actually happening in your body and and it is connected to memories in your mind. When you start to feel uncomfortable or like a little anxietal, or you're feeling sweaty, oh, what is this like? I feel like I'm on stage, this billionaires. I don't even know what they're seeing. They can't. I don't know what does that make me? I'm so confused. Confused means you are fused with something that is holding, like it's literally creating too much. You're activated too much. There's a flooding that's happening in your body, in your nervous system, and it's connected to a memory of a past experience or something someone said, or the fact that society states that, and fill in the blank. And you can never go against that type of stuff. So I don't know if that was at
Well,
all like activating for you, but you know,
I
Well,
like
no, because
that thought. Okay.
I was thinking about like if this billionaire came and he said that to you and he said that to me, I was imagining what I would say in response to that. And then it just like started making me think of, well, I would respond in these three ways. And like then all of a sudden I was like, oh shit, well, this is what this like says about me and like what's holding me back. Like these are like the insecurities that I have, or like the thought patterns, right? Like if it's too good to be true, it probably is. Like someone really wouldn't want to do that. Or you don't take things from people. You make your own way and you do it by yourself. Like no one gives you a handout. And so then I think about that. And then I think about my business. And I think, well, in what ways now am I limiting myself? You know,
right.
like moving forward or
Yes,
taking that next step. It's some of those same thought patterns. So then in
exactly.
my mind, like, I'm like, okay, well, that's me. And I was thinking, well, what would you say
What
if
did you
someone
think
said,
I would say?
well, I didn't get that far because that was a lot to process while she was talking. I got through all that myself, but
So that
it's interesting
uncovers
that
some
like,
of those
you know,
thoughts.
like those are the glasses I'm wearing when the world comes at me. So like what glasses is he wearing when it comes at him? And then how does that skew like how in tune he is with like what he wants versus what he needs?
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah,
then it also then made me think about like for me in my core, like I know my yeses and my nos, and I can't always explain why it's a yes or why it's a no, but it's, you know, when you're talking about like, are your armpits sweating? Are you feeling like flush or whatever? Like in my gut, it's like, I know if it's a yes or a no, like there's,
yeah.
but
You do.
sometimes I'll wait and I'll waver and I'll hem and I'll haul, but it's like, I know this is a yes, or I know this is a no. And I just, you know, like, because I can feel it.
Yeah.
And so sometimes I do let my body dictate if it's a yes or a no based on, or regardless of what my mind is thinking.
Right, but also I've seen like sometimes acting on those yeses or nos can be scary because the kind of person I need to become to say no or to say yes to, you know, whatever the situation is not who I'm used to being. Like so it's weird to know the right action to take or response to have, but then to actually do it does produce some of those discomforts that we've had.
Yeah. Yep. And to know, number one, that I think the number one question that you can ask when you're in those situations is, am I safe? First, you have to create this safety. Actually, I would say back up. First, you have to know what's safe for you, right? You have to feel what safe is. Safe doesn't exist outside of you. It's actually a perception that you have inside your body. There are several, like, and there's a, you know, your nervous system, that there are perceptions in your body. I'm going to leave it that way so I don't get into all of the somatic nervous system brain correlations. Or so you can feel safe. So if you can ask yourself if you feel safe and you know your yes or no, like it sounds like you understand what full body yes and what full body no means. And then sometimes you're like, okay, well, I know it's a yes, but I'm not acting on it. So that's one way that you can look at actually becoming the person. Like that's a ceiling for you. And then you're saying that, you know that the action you need to take is this, but I'm scared to do that. I don't want to do that. I don't, if you can know that you're safe in your body, right? Then you can take action, make yourself take action, if you will. So you take the action. You're not going to take the action in comfort. It's not going to be comfortable at all whatsoever, but you will increase your capacity to tolerate discomfort by accepting that truth is your brain is not set up to take those risks and feel comfortable.
Hmm.
And you sort of, that's why it's really important to actually know your yeses and nos and to know that you're safe or not. If you're not safe, then you're hurting yourself in some way. Doesn't mean that you're traumatizing yourself, but you could. And by being unaware, right? And you could take that all the way to, you could literally get yourself into situations if you're not coherent about what feels safe for you or not, right? You can not give consent or give consent and not know what you're giving consent for, and then you get hurt. So knowing you're like safe, what safe feels like, and doing the action will create a threshold, and the ceiling and all of that comes together, right? And so you're doing shit, this feels very risky, but you're now cognitive about it. So there's other parts of your brain that are online with the part that's trying to say, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it. And you do it, and you're talking about it. You're probably talking to your wife about it. You're talking to, you know, that this is, it's not, we could say it's calculated, but also it's not calculated. You're taking a huge risk and you have zero idea if it's going to be right or wrong. And then I won't even get into, okay, it turns out it's wrong, because then you have further evidence, right? Your brain then gathers this evidence as if to say, that shit wasn't safe. Don't you dare do that again. And so when it comes time to actually do it again, you're going to meet this discomfort, is the point. The point is tension and discomfort don't disappear. But if you know what feels safe and you're aligned with your yes and no and your inner authority, right? It's coming from your perception of, okay, well, this makes sense to me. This is where I want to go. And then you go. I mean, what happens after that is called life. So it's not easy.
I like that question, because one that we've asked ourselves often is, what's the worst that could happen?
Right.
And then we kind of play out like what really could be the worst possible thing. And if it's not that bad, then we go for it. But I do like this is I think like more positive. Like, am I safe? Am I safe in my body? Well, 99% of the time, the kinds of decisions that we're making, it's yeah. Right. So what really is holding us back then? And the idea of being getting more comfortable with the feeling of discomfort, or more familiar with that feeling, seems like a big next step, and leaning into those things too.
Familiar. The word is familiar. I like what you said. Becoming more familiar with your discomfort is like one of the biggest pieces of work. I mean, it will bring about, if you could just stay on that for your lifetime, really, you're good. I mean, you're going to feel it in your body. You're going to feel it in your mind, like the meaning making. All of that is included in what you just said. So, yes.
So I think through a lot of what we've already talked about, we've kind of touched on this already, is that manifesting doesn't really work with, you know, posting a picture or thinking about something. That there's usually an action plan or a series of steps that you have to take. So if you like are working towards something or are reaching towards something, that it's not just this magic or this you know, this magical state that the universe gives you something, that it's you're reaching out and you're climbing towards it in a way that is,
well, so it seems like we've answered the question, like, does manifesting work without like actions or an action plan of some kind? But what about the reverse? Like, does an action plan work without the manifesting or the mental work that corresponds with it?
Well, I think the answer to that is that's what you're manifesting already. Or tell me where I'm wrong there, because that's what it sounds like you're saying. I know that we're reversing it.
Mm-hmm.
For
But
the
there is no action plan without the initial manifesting of it anyway.
Yeah, you're manifesting now, whether you're aware of it or not. And you are also manifesting in concert with the universe. So there literally is a mystery there is a mystery of unknowns. The universe, like you said, reaching out to the universe and grabbing, right? Well, you're doing it in concert, actually, because energy plays a part. We can't know lots of things, but scientists are constantly trying to answer the questions, right? And so I'm not going to enter any of those things here, because there's a lot of resources everywhere to tell you about what, you know, quantum physics and energy is all about. But you're already manifesting, and you're manifesting in concert with the universe. And whether you're, you know, I mean, at this point, it's about becoming more aware of what you're manifesting. What actions are you taking? What are those actions saying? And that's where you stop to ask, okay, well, what is that action saying about what area do I need to address that action and what it's saying about me? Is that my mind? Am I like, is that my, faith-based values, life, things like that. So you are already manifesting. The other thing I wanted to just make sure that we were clear on is that visualization does take that is a part of manifesting. That is a big part, because you are actually engaging your brain in its function to support this action base, sometimes creating the actions for you, right? I had heard a story a while ago on the internet about visualization and the brain and the way it works. And it was like they took UCLA, actually, this is a UCLA study where they took students, two groups. One was, they visualized two different things. And one group, they had said, well, visualize what it will feel like in your body to go and go to look for your score on the test up at so imagine going up and looking and seeing an A plus and so imagine doing that. So that was that group. The other group was set to imagine or visualize, not imagine, but just both, visualize and imagine, that they actually were doing the work. So they were going up into their dorm room, they were concentrating on working for the test, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm wondering, which group do you think had the actual had the outcome they wanted? I had to slow down a little, sorry. So got the outcome that they wanted, through this visualization. Which group do you think?
I would guess group B.
Right. The one going up to their door and visualizing, reading the book effort, and how to do it. And
okay, so a lot of people actually say group A because they think that visualization serves that sort of purpose, but actually it's not. It's the actions that take place. And your brain also doesn't know the difference between the reality of doing it versus the visualizing and imagining of doing it. So if you're doing the work, you're getting the thing back. You're co-creating with the universe. You really are. So I just wanted to make that point. The visualization is important and key, but it is not the only thing. And I think that because Western culture has stated so much of what we believe is reality, we do it through our brain, through our mind. It's the mind that matters, that kind of thing. And so we have literally closed off most, our body. We're completely cut off at the head. And you can't get shit with just using your head. You really can't. Your mind, your brain, you can't.
Well, so. They've said the same thing, with athletes, or if you're a dancer, or you're in high school, going through this, you're about to go on stage and you stand there and you close your eyes and you're picturing yourself on stage. How are you standing? How are you breathing? Whether you're going through the motions of the dance or it's kind of this mental.
We were in marching band in high school together. So remember on the bus, on the way to the performance, we would be on the bus and they would do, what do we call it?
A mental run through.
Yeah. What do we call a sing through or something. And everybody, and if you're a trumpeter, then you'd be bah, 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 bah. I played the drums, so I'm sitting there pretending I'm drumming and just kind of mentally running through it.
Yes, your brain is already doing it. So it already knows it can do it. And there are a lot of reasons why you do that in manifestation. It helps with self-sabotage. Because you're running through something that you are imagining and visualizing you actually doing. And then your brain already thinks that it's capable of doing it. So the self-critic gets quieter. And then it might be discomfort, it might be uncomfortable, but it might be a little less uncomfortable if you're doing the visualization and you can do it. Your mind is definitely online with manifestation, but it is not the only thing to take into consideration. In fact, it won't help. It won't happen. It's not going to be it could, if you just used your mind and do all the actions and exercises, if you will, from other people that say you're going to meet lots of goals. But I'm going to tell you something, and I have met people like this. You can base your life off of all the shit you learned from all the other people, all the resources in the fucking world, excuse me. And when you get to the goal line, A, you won't recognize you're at a goal, and B, you don't want it. It was based on shit
It
you
wasn't for
didn't
you.
even want in the first place. Yes, but because you were using your mind and you know the reality around you told you the goals that you wanted. Of course you want to be rich, of course you want to be good looking, of course you want to have a good relationship, of course you want to, like, all of these ridiculous things. Of course you want to be just as famous as the famous people. I mean, I'm just making shit up right now, but
Right.
you're going to get to the finish line and you're going to be really unhappy, and not only very unhappy, existentially unhappy. At the bottom line, existentially depressed, because now what is life, what is the meaning of life? What is the meaning of your life? Then what is the purpose of your life? If you've done all of these things and then you get all the things, you're like the richest famous billionaire, and those fuckers are very unhappy. They're very unhappy, and they're like us. I mean, like everyone, we're human, not like you and I, not us, but like human. They're human. So
obviously there's this like level of awareness, that we have about like, or, that I have about what I want or what I say I want and how I'm going to get there, and kind of focusing on being in tune with what I want and who I am. And then what success is for me maybe isn't what that billionaire has for success, but to me, that doesn't matter because I'm not comparing, like I'm just kind of in my lane, like really focused. Is there, maybe not everybody is at that point where they can just kind of like sit there and be aware and unlock some of these truths. Is there a way to unlock truth if you're at a block or you don't know how, that is,
Like,
in your subconscious, that's underlying that can like kind of awaken some of that for people?
are you saying
there's
it's like, so we know what we actually want versus what we
Say we want, or
think
what
we
we've been
want, or
told
what?
we want, or
Yeah. I mean, that's like a golden question. And of course, so I would say it depends on where this person is at. Do they need professional help, or meaning a therapist could help unlock that, right? I can tell you what worked for me. And it's been a lifelong journey, and it's an arm of my work. Um, and when it comes to blocks, um, in the mind, one of the biggest, I think, pluses is psychedelics. Now, I'm not saying everybody should go and do psychedelics actually at all. I'm just saying it's an antidote. It's a powerful antidote. You don't have to macro dose, meaning you don't have to take a huge dose of psychedelics in order to have some sort of breakthrough. In fact, you could, hurt yourself and cost yourself a lot of years of processing, where it could be a more gentle experience. So
Okay, let's go. We are both like big squares when it comes to this. Never gotten high. Like really, like not even entry level. Like
just vanilla.
What do you mean
plain.
by psychedelics? Do you go to your local psychedelic shop? What's the for your
She's laughing, of course.
I love it.
like the way it's in movie, everybody has a guy. Like, we live in the
White
peaceful,
suburbia,
yeah. And but so like what's the on-ramp for psychedelics for people like us who don't know a damn thing? And also like what are the I guess like what are the applications towards what we're talking towards, like becoming more of who we want to be and finding the right things to center ourselves on.
Right. Okay. So I'm going to start with the cautions. The cautions, right? Because and I'm not going to give you a caution of don't get it from a bad dealer. That's not what I'm talking about. So first off, I think there's two things I want to say. Number one, getting out of your comfort zone you could do that in many ways. So you don't need to think to go into exploring with psychedelics, right? And I think for the two of you, you're already sort of there, and it actually would be interesting for you to actually get on an on ramp to go. But I don't want you to think that there are not other ways outside of psychedelia that would create a transformational breakthrough.
Mhm.
And breakthroughs come from the micro movements. That is something I say to my clients and my family all the time, because we think, whoa, let's go and have a huge, like, let's just drop a bunch of acid and have a huge, that's going to help me, right? No, it could, and it also could not, and it could just blow your mind completely. And we don't want to really do that either. So for you not having any idea of what an on-ramp or, what that would look like, I just want you to know that that you can explore somatically without psychedelics, like body work. You could explore in holotropic breath work, which you actually can reach mind states that you can reach, that you experience in psychedelia, like under the influence of psychedelics. You could go taking small amounts over a short periods of time, like spurts of time, and you will start to recognize different things. I won't fill in the blanks for you, but research is there, and people will let you. There's a lot of reading material. I too have reading material, but so it's not about getting the right or wrong thing from the dude on the corner. It is about getting outside of your comfort zone hugely, but safely, very safely. And also, you don't have to get that far out, but if you were to get that far out. So one thing that I can say about psychedelics, for me, my experience with psychedelics is that it has been very healing and it has been very aligning. So it's created a lot of congruency, coherency within my thoughts and my body and my soul, my energetic body, my just all of the alignment within my being, right? And I also understand what ego looks like for me and who I am, what my place is in this universe. I also know I don't know a whole shit ton. Like, that's a tiny little fractal. And I have a lot of respect and honor for the fucking unknown. And I will leave it on the shelf of the fucking unknown. And I know anything is possible, and I have unlimited potential. And I had a lot of healing to do in order to reach where I'm at now within like my state of beingness in my life. And I would not have done that. I don't think that would have happened. And I have the evidence from medication. So I was raised in a household of abuse. I was abused heavily and tortured. And so coming out of that abuse, being on the streets at 14, just imagine the story. And then having the unfortunate experience of the same that I had in the house happening on the outside of the house. And then it led into suicide attempts, which I died a few times, and I had, I don't call them near-death experiences because I literally died. So there were death experiences that I came back from with this sort of like, oh my God, how am I supposed to navigate life through that, right? After you come back from the unknown, right? And that was a giant thing. And I had already I had already done acid at one point before attempting suicide, I believe. Long story short, that connected and started to heal my brain in ways that I didn't know yet. And there was a lot of healing that had to take place. And I did that through psychedelics. So for me, and it was a very large journey. I have and it was a lot of different psychedelics for different specific reasons and different. So there's a lot there. And I think my first thing, like my first advice, I don't know if I would call it advice, is to educate yourself, right? Obviously. And also to be very careful and very mindful, because there's a large body of consumerism happening right now. It's no longer I mean, there's a lot of great conversations happening, and I'm very happy to see that. And there are also people that are calling themselves healers, and ethically, that's not very accurate because they are not the healer of you. Like healers, when I hear the word healer, I bolt the other way
Hmm.
because I spent a long time in the field of um, let me heal you. I'm like, okay, great, heal me, take this pain away. I was traumatized. I don't have a mom. Like, help me with this shit. And it would never, well, you need to do this. They would give me some, bizarre advice, and not always bizarre, but enough for me to think and believe that I needed to do these things that they were saying. But it never helped. It was never helpful. It never healed shit. I did all that work myself.
Hmm.
So caution to that out in the psychedelic world. Educate a lot about what that looks like. And microdosing is an amazingly safe way to actually start like exploring, and then find someone you can talk to. I mean, you could talk to me for sure, but there is a lot of information out there. Psychedelics started to become pretty like big with Silicon Valley. If you can imagine the people that are making the AI and all the things that are like mind-boggling to some, these people spend all their time in those realms, like those far out realms. How? Psychedelics. They have used psychedelics for quite a long time. And so their micro movements have, led into all of the things that we know as tech these days. And so it started that conversation. And then of course it just it's like it's like a wildfire.
Hmm.
So what's happening now in the field is there's
Yep.
too much to talk about. So I had to try to, block it together for you.
I think that's an interesting call to action because we were good students of the DARE program when we were kids, and really have right. We avoided that. We've thought actually this is on. We referenced like a list of future episodes. This is one of them actually, is to like do something along those lines, whether you're getting high or
So we
or
took a gummy and this is what
well,
happened.
not even yeah.
Yes,
And then
we took a
report back
gummy.
and right,
Yeah.
because we're probably like all of our listeners are probably like, you kidding me? Like
No
you
way.
guys, yeah. um but I've listened to Sam Harris for
Mhm.
quite some time, and his stance is pretty much, he's like, if you've never taken a trip, like what the hell are you waiting for? Like there's a lot like on the other side of that door that are normally not inaccessible but take a lot of different kinds of effort, perhaps
Yeah.
years worth of effort to like reach that same domain that is difficult to describe, but like once you experience it, right, you can always know something, put words to it, but like the actual experience of it is something different. So that's definitely been on our radar. But it's same
Yeah.
thing. Well, this is something we need to get familiar with the discomfort of,
Yeah. I
perhaps.
can yeah, I want to say two things. Number one, I would also caution you to not read everyone's psychedelic stories and journeys, only because I mean they're fascinating and they're amazing and they're great to contemplate, and you're just like, wow, there is some sort of mind, I'm going to use this word, mind masturbation that happens when you read other people's psychedelic journeys and stories. And they can be for good, like they can maybe help you become more comfortable, answer questions, things like that, right? But they can never tell you what you're going to experience. And a lot of people will stop themselves or start themselves based on other people's experiences, which is one of the things I said earlier. It's not that easy to, like, don't live a life that way. The other thing is dare. Interesting. If you educate yourself in the drug, like the war on drugs,
I was to say
etc.
this is the war on drugs era that we were raised in.
Yeah, because a lot of people have come through the war of drugs. And one of the things that I would say is majorly important for you, specifically you now, but majorly important for everyone, is to educate yourself about what that war on drugs was based on, what the roots of it were, motivating that war on drugs, who was taking, like why they were making the moves, because because we didn't need to be in a war on drugs. It was a racist war happening, and they used drugs, quote unquote. They locked in psychedelics as well. There was a ton of research that was actually being done, and it was being developed like side by side with the antidepressants and the psychiatric drugs that were being used for the times, right? And so educating yourself on what drugs are and why and how they, like the meaning of it, and then finding a meaning for you first before you graduate into exploring more is better, because the taboo is you can scare yourself. Like doing the work inside first is a really good first step for you guys. Finding out what drugs, like what you would define as drugs, especially coming from a place where you were advocates against drugs, like don't do that, it will hurt your brain. And there are a lot of drugs that are legal that hurt your brain, and the whole story and everything in between. So educating yourself about that, finding your beliefs is really important, and then exploring what you would actually do. What would that even look like? Because there is a huge piece that does blow your mind, and like in literal sense. And so that's not something that you go to without preparation. So for me and people that I work with, we work for almost a whole year, sometimes prepping and then doing, and then integration after, so that you're actually walking away from doing intentional work and seeing actual benefit in your life, and a transformation from all of the micro movements, and defining things for you, exploring, educating, things like that. So all of that to just say, educate on what your beliefs are as far as that is concerned, and find out more about the war on drugs. It's a huge thing.
Yeah, I'm familiar, and I don't want to. I've read some things about that. I'm not prolific enough in that reading to say anything here, but that I would definitely like echo that for our listeners too, because there is some fascinating like political and racial history tied to that war on drugs.
Yeah.
And I'm over here like, wow, I had no idea.
Yeah.
That's cool. Well, and that's the greatest thing. I mean, there's an idea. Now you get to choose and decide what it is that you're going to do with it. And there is no pressure. You don't have to, you don't have to do anything with that, but it is fascinating.
I think that's the beauty of part of the reason that we have the podcast and we have these conversations and we interview like you're outside of like my realm of understanding or of comfort, like in that, but it's like there's so much outside of like what we know or what we've been taught or what even we believe to be true. And as an adult, like I get to make my own decisions moving forward. And so like, this is an on-ramp to a conversation that opens my mind to something outside of the norm. And I think that's what's great about this.
I agree. That's what I was giving you guys kudos for in the beginning, having a podcast based on powerful conversations, because I don't know if you've noticed, but the world, we connect in communication. And if we can have powerful conversations, true things can really change and shift. I mean, they do with the micro movements. And sometimes we want to get lost in making the macro movements, but feeling honor for the micro movements, these powerful conversations with you, feeling a little uncomfortable. And then like, I think that this having conversations in safety is a giant piece to having powerful conversations. And I don't know if people actually understand that is something that has to be on board for powerful conversations to happen, like consent and safety, feeling safe, because a conversation can go like one way real quick, right? I know we've all seen those types of things, right? And that's due to somebody not feeling safe. And then, defensive tactics, etc. come on. So that doesn't matter here, but I'm just saying, having conversations with safe people, I feel in my body that you two are safe to speak to, right? You may feel the same way for me, to speak with me. And that's like friendly witnessing potentiates us outside of our comfort zone. Like it adds to our potentiation.
Right. You're not telling me what to think or feel or believe. You're just opening my thought
Yeah,
world into something that I don't know anything about.
Mhm. I feel like that's
exactly.
a part of that process too, of that manifesting and like talking. I feel like you have someone to kind of like a sounding board, I think is kind of a cliche term, like someone just to, does this make sense when I say it out loud? What am I missing? What else? Yeah.
Right,
Where do we go from
right.
here?
Yeah, it's an invitation, and also I call it a friendly witness. I mean, that's what I call it in my book. That's what I say to people. That's I've had groups based on being a friendly witness. A friendly witness is someone who listens, and so you're able to actually just talk about whatever it is you need to talk about at full length. And they don't get to talk back. They don't say what they heard. They don't really do anything. You're just sort of becoming more aware of what you're saying. So you've got your observer observing you saying what you're saying. And that's a super powerful exercise to actually do, friendly witnessing. And then on the side of the friendly witnessing, there's a second type of conversation that can happen there where you actually have the person add what their experience about the same sort of thing is. And then you can hear inside their experience pieces of your story and then pieces that you were missing for yourself in the story, which is that potentiation. And then you get to bridge that and then, oh wow, yeah, okay, so that, then you say, then you share back to them what that did for you, not specifically like when you said this, it's just a hugely potentiating conversation happening if you are friendly witnessing, listening, and you're also there for the potentiation. It happens a lot in women's circles. You can go around and have 10 women in a circle and hear each woman's story is different, but there are aspects and pieces of each woman's story that add to a piece for you. And then you walk away and you're like, whoa, oh, wow. I was able to, and then XYZ, and I've been invited to think about it differently, or I, understand myself differently. So conversations are hugely potentiating.
Can I tell two quick stories?
Yes.
Funny stories from when I was younger, but I thought of these just as you were speaking and as we were talking about visualizing too. One was when I was probably in junior high, and there's like this, it's like almost like a silly game competition that was taking place in through my church, the Awana Olympics.
There you go.
And there's this game where you stand on the outside of a circle and there's four teams. And when they blow a whistle or something, then one member of the team runs inside and has to grab a beanbag from the center of the circle. And if you get it, then you get the points. So my coach like took a picture of this beanbag and he said, "Take this home with you, put it on your bed. I just want you to stare at this beanbag." And I'm like, "Okay." And I did. And I would just look at it, right? Like my coach told me to do. I'm just like centering my attention on it. And then I remember hearing laughter behind me, and it's my parents and my sister. Like, like, what are you doing? You're just looking at a picture of a beanbag. I'm like, oh, well, yeah, I guess it is silly. But when it came time for the competition, I got the beanbag. So then it was my validating moment. I'm like, good thing I stared at that photo.
Mhm.
Um, so I don't know if the staring at the photo actually did anything, but it was like at least my introduction to the visualizing of your goal process.
Yeah, I don't know if I believe that you don't know if it actually, I mean, in the seat that you sit right now, at the age that you are right now in this conversation, would you not say out of the things that we said that it probably did?
It
I
wasn't
I
all of
mean,
it, but it was some of it.
I
Yeah.
feel like it did,
yeah.
but
Well, it's the brain functioning. So I would just probably strongly invite you to look at how the brain works with manifestation and visualization. Like what's the function? Because scientifically speaking, there is science behind this visualization. I don't know exactly like you. I guess I'm gonna now sort of be I don't know, it's like I'm gonna take everything away now, right? By thinking that I think you do. know the answer. And the answer is yes, it had everything to do with it. But I don't know what that was like for you as far as staring at the beanbag and the coach. Did the coach give you specifics like stare at it because you're going to go in that circle, you're going to get that damn beanbag? And that's just the end of the story, right?
I think it was almost like, yeah, it like enhances your belief and your ability
Yeah.
to do it. And then
Or what you know
that
what you're looking
manifests
for, you
through the
can
way you
grab it.
practice about it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
You know,
it's hard to chart. So yes, I do agree with you in that it did make a difference, but it's hard to chart the
Right.
progression of.
But I think that's part of it, right? Like that there's shit that we don't know, and there's things that we can't explain. And so part of it is prep and planning and visualizing and watching. And part of it is that it's a little unexplainable, right? Like the same kid that puts the Harvard, poster on his wall, and every decision he makes about whether he's going to that party or if he's going to practice is, based on what he sees, that like he's exchanging experiences or what he's putting before his friends for that ultimate goal. It's that reminder that like that's what he's chasing. So
that's exactly it. Yeah, that's exactly it. And it informs everything that he does because it's a belief he already has. He already has a belief that Harvard is the best. Where did that belief come from? Many places, but now it's his belief. And so he's got that poster reminding him. So every action he takes is based on that belief for sure. And also the universe has a way bigger imagination than we do. So that sort of goes along with the whole mystery. Like, sure, we can say it happened, or we get to choose. You can choose, but you can also choose not to choose if you want to. I think there's more power in choosing. And I'll tell you why really quick. And then I'd love to hear that second story. The power of choice. So one of the rules that I've given myself in my life is I have the power to choose to change my mind at any point in time, no matter what it is. I can say one thing and a minute later, if it's not true anymore, I can say the opposite and I accept that. If you can choose something and own it fully, then you have a different place to start from again. If you stay behind and not choose, and I'm not saying making decisions, right? I'm saying maybe owning a choice versus, well, I guess maybe exploring. There's a lot to say about exploring. So what I'm saying is adopt a belief, like a choice, and whatever the truth is for you, and state it as your truth so that you can see what your next step is. Sometimes it's the complete opposite of the truth that you have right now. Sometimes you can go months, years with that truth being true for you. But then as soon as something is not true, then you have a place to go. But if you don't, and you just keep adding more to it, it's very hard to own and then change and then be more, be in flow and fluid with being you. It's a much more powerful way, this from my experience, it's more powerful to own the choice, like, or my belief or my truth versus not and waiting for exploring. I did that a lot in my life. That's why I have created this like concrete way of, okay, well, if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. I'll find out I'm wrong. If I don't make the choice and like start to do the action that is going to become the thing that I want, then I'm never going to get there. So I'm going to that's sort of how that was born. It was like, it's your truth, own it, and then you can change it when you need to change it. It's not something that a lot of people do. It's not something that a lot of people do with ease either, I think. I
think that wasn't accepted for so long. It's
no.
Choose the one thing and that's all you're ever allowed to do or be. There was no changing.
And if you don't, you are XYZ, XYZ, XY. It's very hard to live in society, especially the way that it is right now. So, yeah. So what's the second story?
Well, actually, this raises a question the second story is very, very similar, more sentimental, but you mentioned hanging a Harvard poster in your room and aspiring towards that. So I think you're kind of answering this already, but as parents, can we hang the Harvard poster in our kids' rooms? And to what extent can you manifest for someone else, especially our kids?
Leave them alone.
Well, no, like it's not. It's our parents' job to have some degree of oomph in a direction that we perceive as good for them. I mean, at least while they're young. So okay,
I want to answer that. I'm here with you. So number one, no, you cannot manifest for someone else. Manifestation has everything to do with free will. We cannot control anyone else's free will. I mean, you can think you can try. I mean, you really could try. You just cannot. It does not matter whatsoever. You can think that manifestation is somehow like your magical powers over someone else's free will. No, it's not. Also, in the case of being parents of small, of being parents, this is from my perspective. They are born through us. They are not ours. That's number one. Number two, becoming a very good listener is probably the hugest asset that you have for being parents and wanting your children to learn by example what manifestation is. You can do that in many ways by knowing that manifestation is not putting a Harvard poster and that's it. That's visualization, and you can teach your children visualization. You can do meditations with them. I would invite you to think about showing them versus teaching them. Showing them by example is so much more of a potent influencer than teaching them. Teaching is sort of authoritative. Living by example is calling on their own primal like wisdom, because they already have everything. They already think everything's possible anyway. I mean, not to get deep into it, but kids are freaking magical. So like I'm hands off on that. And also it doesn't mean that your kids aren't going to struggle with manifesting and, making money or having the right job. None of that. Even if you do show them by example, this is my belief. These are all my beliefs. Disclaimer. I'm not speaking truth for anyone else, but I do think that I would think about living through example and becoming a very good listener of what things, and then showing them how to do things. This is what it looks like to visualize. Mommy does it. You're already doing it by example. Let them see these things. When they ask questions, answer the questions. You don't ever have to get the answers right. So being right is not the point. Sharing the journey you're on is the point. And it, I think, creates closeness because they have what it is we are trying to recapture as we're doing the manifesting and breaking through ceilings and feeling the discomfort and learning about how our brains function and what does our body have to do with everything and where is science, is this magic, et cetera, right? Mm-hmm. So that's what I would say. They come through us. They're definitely not us, not ours. And we can't control anyone's free will. I would love that, and also I wouldn't.
Karen, let me just move you to where you need to be.
What I meant by I would love that, I meant that I would love for my kids to have all of the things they want right now, right? Et cetera, et cetera. I lived the best example that I knew how at every moment I was living being a parent for my kids. And I still do the same. That's what I stand by. So the things that I shared with you are the ways that I live. And I have very close relationships with my kids, and listening to them and seeing their own life unfold the way that it's just so much more. It just feels so powerful to see them put one dot, like connect one dot to another dot to another dot. Whoa, having the micro movements get to this macro transformation is so cool to see, and having it be their own, like of their own will and their own agency. So I wasn't specifically talking about it would be great if I could control their free will.
Yeah, no, we agree with you. And I feel like as like products of our own parents, right, to a certain degree, we spend a lot of our youth and early adulthood trying to live out their vision for us, to some extent. And either we grow up to be aware of that and to accept that, or to reject it and find our own way. So it's almost like a good goal as parents is what I'm processing is to like how soon can we honor their own autonomy and like just show them how to value that for themselves, and hopefully guide
it's
them.
part of them is showing them that they can reach or unlock whatever they want, that it's the opportunity is there, but trusting them to make the right decision for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Trust is a huge thing in self-trust. I mean, self-trust comes first. I mean, agency is really autonomy, and agency comes with brain development as well, and reflecting back in ways for you as parents so that you can create these containers where they might be able to get the handoff when, you know, their prefrontal cortex is completely formed and they are now associating action with consequence, something like that. But yeah, I think she's got a lot of wisdom, as do you. You guys both are pretty wise cats here.
I mostly follow her lead, and that's how I've stayed out
I
of
think
trouble.
that's probably the smartest thing that you could ever do in your entire life. Just
Write that down.
speaking patriarchally here. I mean, literally. It's so true. I don't think I think that you probably know that as well. Judging by your beautiful smile and the way that you have, you know, you're like the invitation you have when it comes to wanting to hear from her and what she has to say and what she's giving you. This is very cool. I like it.
I agree. I tell the kids this. I'm like, I learned, you know, we've been together for
A long time.
like 24 years
Yeah.
since we were kids. But I learned, I think, too late just to agree with what she says. And now I tell the kids,
not agree, just listen.
I hear in
find
between.
the truth.
to listen, to go with it. Let's like, I finally recognized that your mom is almost always right. So don't do what I did and fight that. Just go with it, and then you'll understand and appreciate it later.
That's very nice. You're helping build a bridge of trust, because it's right. We, as women, we're mostly right. And we've done a lot of work in order to be right. And we've suffered a lot in order to wear the right, like the shirt that says I'm fucking right all the time. Just follow me.
I think that's true. And there's big, you know, ways big and small that I think come up almost daily. This morning was, you know, whether or not our preschooler needs a coat. So
actually, I didn't say make sure you put on a coat when you drop him off for preschool. When he got back, I said, you did put a coat on him, right?
And I didn't, you know, I didn't really argue, but no, I didn't put a coat on him, but I should have.
She invited you to, okay. She invited you to, she actually did a whole lot of things right there. It's like, you should have she said like 5 things with, you did put a coat on.
Sure did, didn't I?
Yes, you did. I love that you guys know your language 24 years, and yeah, you would know your language for sure. Each other's language. That's pretty cool. I know for me, I have a shirt that says crone grown and crown owned. Like I'm crone. I'm going into my crone years, and my crown, like everything, all of everything is owned by me and only me. So it's sort of like you and you're right. It's just an easier world when, you know, our partners, and not like different gendered bodies, whoever they are, listen and trust in, you know, what we as individual human beings bring to the table. It's a huge invitation for being able to say, I don't know, and then learning and then living so much bigger of a life.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's just so much bigger. So,
and so I have one last story that's kind of related. It's related to us, and but going more similar to the beanbag, was the night before my freshman year in high school. I was going through I have an older sister, so I was going through her yearbook just to get an idea of what high school is like. I was nervous. Then I saw a picture of a guy, I believe was a senior, giving a kiss on the cheek to a girl. And like the girl was cute. The guy looked, you know, like a reasonable, you know, 18-year-old. And I loved this picture. I was like, you know, I want to be that kind of guy who could just, you know, like take this cute girl and give her a kiss on the cheek. And then I didn't really think much of it. I remember like vividly, like being on my bed, flipping through your book and landing on that particular photo. But then I remember 4 years later, so we met in high school, we had been dating, and then our senior year, a very similar picture of us was taken and landed in the yearbook. And then I remember like seeing that picture in the yearbook, and then I'd kind of forgotten about it, but I went back to that memory of pre-high school, and then I compared like those two photos and thinking like yes, like this kind of magic thing that was important to me as like a 14-year-old boy like had come to fruition. And I think even like I didn't meditate on it, so even less so than the beanbag, but like this was another moment in my youth that had taught me about like, how would you say, like the kind of like the envisioning of who you want to be, the kind of experience that you want to have, and then to actually experience the magic of that becoming a reality for me was very instructive during that time.
Yeah, connecting the dots. So I mean, and in the name of connecting the dots, you can never connect the dots moving forward. You can connect the dots like upon
Yes.
behind you. Like you can never connect them in the front. But this sounds like a dot connecting moment. And if I were you, I would invite myself to think about what it gave you, what the gift, like I'll call it a gift. What gift that moment brought you to connect that dot, and what did that say to you about what life is, and what meaning did you extract or give that, to find your ground and step there, as well as connecting that dot. Like there's more than just connecting that dot. You're bringing this story up for a really good reason. I mean, it's made an impression, and so you've been influenced. To find out exactly how you've been influenced might be a really great step to look at on how you're already sort of manifesting and connecting dots and what it means to you, that sort of thing.
Yeah, I don't want to overstate the impact it had on me as an 18-year-old. But I think like even now, like 20 years later, looking back at that, like I'm beginning to like place a little bit more understanding and value on that.
Yeah.
Stemming from conversations like these.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah. There's a lot. We could talk forever, I'm sure.
Yeah, this has been very instructive. And I think there's several action points for us just as we continue to think about some of the things that we brought up here. As we wrap up, I wanted to ask you if there's anything that you're particularly working on, or anything, if our audience were interested in working with or connecting with you more, if there are some opportunities there for them.
Yeah, there's actually two. I have a wait list for the Inner Authority Academy that is going to be launching soon. They can contact me through angelinalombardo.com. And I also wanted to gift all of the listeners a copy of my book, The Spiritual Entrepreneur. So really all they need to do is go to angelinalombardo.com and fill out the message form and send me The Spiritual Entrepreneur. They don't have to say much. They can just say book. It'd be better if they said Spiritual Entrepreneur, because I have 2 books. That's my second one. So, so free gift and a wait list. That will also, I can send them a link for the wait list for the Inner Authority Academy and the Prep School for Plant Medicine, which is sort of entwined to that. So it's all wait list right now, soon to be launched. And I think that's it. If anybody has any questions or wants to contact me, they can go ahead and do that through my website. Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, thanks for joining us on the show today. And I think the next step should probably be sending you a selfie from Paris. And hopefully there's a lot of other good things to come that we can trace back to this conversation and share with you in the future too.
Inevitably, I'm sure there will be. I'm sure. Plus a trip to Portugal.
Oh, there you go.
Right? It's close to Paris.
It's on the way.
It's on the way. Exactly. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate the time that you guys both took and all of the things that you shared with me. I really appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thanks so much for listening to today's show. We hope you will use this conversation as a starting point for your own. We hope you're encouraged to think and act more intentionally.
If you want to learn more, you can visit our website, therelentlesspursuitpodcast.com, where you can find notes on today's show, plus additional blog posts, and you can subscribe to our free members list.
Please subscribe, leave a review, and share with your friends.
Facebook and Instagram are two great places to connect with us for daily doses of our quotable quotes, behind the scenes, and real-time photos, videos, and challenges.
Until next time, let us know how you are taking life off autopilot
And relentlessly pursuing what matters.